Elon Musk has just pulled back the curtain on a secret plan for Starship Flight 12, and NASA might be in for the shock of a lifetime. This is not just another test flight. This is Flight 12, the first mission of the Starship version 3, a completely upgraded version of the spacecraft, designed not only to perform, but to push the boundaries of what reusable rockets can achieve. If successful, it could mark a turning point in humanity's journey to the stars. Imagine the scene: a towering rocket engine's rumbling flames erupting from a redesigned launch pad, and behind the scenes, Elon Musk and the SpaceX team orchestrating every detail with precision and secrecy. The stakes could not be higher. Flight 12 is not only a test of new technology, it is a test of SpaceX's ability to execute its vision for deep space exploration. The eyes of the aerospace world are on Starbase, Texas, and the countdown has already begun. At present, there is no official update on the timeline for Flight 12. However, SpaceX's Vice President of Launch, Kiko Donchev, has stated that the next Starship test flight could launch as soon as January 2026. The hardware expected to fly on this flight will be the S-39 and B-18 pair. Kiko also confirmed that Booster 18 will be rolling out relatively soon for testing. Flight 12 is unique in ways that go far beyond what we have seen in previous missions. At first glance, the mission profile may seem familiar. The rocket will lift off, climb into the upper atmosphere, and stage separation will occur. The Super Heavy booster will descend in a controlled fall, most likely ending with a soft landing in the ocean. Meanwhile, the Starship upper stage, simply called, the ship will continue into orbit, deploy payloads, conduct in-space demonstrations, and then return to Earth for a controlled landing. On paper, this resembles earlier version 2 flights, but beneath the surface, everything has changed. The true excitement lies in the upgrades. The Starship version 3 represents a complete overhaul, from engines to heat shields, launch pad to ground systems. Elon Musk and SpaceX have been working quietly, refining every detail to make Flight 12 not just a milestone, but a foundation for future operational flights. Let us start at the beginning, the launch pad. Flight 12 will lift off from Pad 2 at Starbase, a brand new pad that has never hosted a launch before. Gone is the six-legged platform paired with the inverted shower water deluge system. Instead, a completely redesigned pad awaits, featuring a box-shaped orbital launch mount supported by a dual flame trench system. This is not a minor change. The new pad offers improved structural stability and can withstand the extreme heat and pressure from the upgraded Raptor 3 engines. The dual flame trench will channel exhaust gases safely away from the rocket, protecting the pad and ensuring it can handle an increasing launch cadence in the years ahead. The ground systems have been upgraded as well. Chopstick arms on Pad 2 are shorter, stronger, and capable of supporting the new version 3 Starship during stacking. While their main role during Flight 12 will be to hold the rocket in place, these arms are also designed with a long-term goal in mind, eventually catching the returning booster and ship eliminating the need for ocean landings. Beneath the pad, SpaceX has upgraded the tank farm and fuel delivery systems, reflecting the increased propellant requirements of the Raptor 3 engines. Water deluge systems have been rebuilt to support the new twin-flame trenches, ensuring sufficient cooling during launch. Every element of the ground infrastructure is being tested to prepare for a future of frequent high-power launches. Now, the rocket itself. At the heart of Flight 12 is the Raptor 3 engine. 33 of these engines will power the Super Heavy booster at liftoff, generating over 9,000 tons of thrust, more than 2.7 times the power of NASA's legendary Saturn V. As Elon said, Raptor 3 will probably be 2 to 4 times better than Merlin in dollar per ton of thrust and will exceed Merlin in thrust-to-weight ratio. But Raptor 3 is not just about brute force. It has been redesigned for efficiency and reliability, with fewer parts, simplified plumbing, and an improved ignition system. These enhancements reduce operational risks and speed up maintenance, while also making mass production and replacement easier. During Flight 12, every engine will be closely monitored. Their performance is critical not only for this mission, but for the future of Starship. Success will pave the way for orbital refueling commercial payloads and eventually mid-air catching of both stages. Any failure could delay these milestones, which is why SpaceX is emphasizing reliability above all else. Another major improvement lies in the hot staging process. In previous version 2 flights, the hot staging ring was a separate component between stages. Now the system is integrated directly into the top of the booster. This simplifies assembly, reduces pre-flight preparation, and improves efficiency. The ring separates cleanly once the upper stage ignites, minimizing debris and stress on the vehicle. Its reduced mass and improved design allow heat and pressure to dissipate more effectively, boosting both performance and durability. As the booster returns, another critical upgrade comes into play: the grid fins. Redesigned in shape, size, positioning, and weight, the new fins improve aerodynamic control and long-term durability. They work with the engines to guide the booster's descent, smoothing deceleration and preparing for future catching operations. Flight 12 will test how these fins handle both guidance and the potential integration of catching points, a crucial step toward SpaceX's ambitious goal of reusing the entire booster. Meanwhile, the upper stage, the ship will continue its journey into orbit. Among its primary objectives is payload deployment. Although details are limited, the version 3 system has been upgraded to handle and release payloads more effectively than ever before. In addition, the ship will conduct a relight test of its Raptor 3 engines in space, demonstrating their improved performance and reliability in the harshest conditions. Arguably, the most important upgrade for the ship is the heat shield. While SpaceX has not disclosed every detail, the Starship version 3 heat shield is expected to be one of the most extensive system overhauls in the program's history. Stronger tiles, better attachment methods, improved placement, and enhanced cooling systems aim to prevent the issues that plagued earlier flights, such as tile loss cracks or leaks. Special attention has been given to the aft flaps, historically the most vulnerable part of the vehicle during re-entry. Strengthening this area is critical for stability, maneuverability, and safe return. If successful, these upgrades will allow more advanced recovery methods and pave the way for fully reusable spacecraft. Every improvement: ground systems, engines, hot staging, grid fins, heat shield, and payload deployment is experimental. Yet SpaceX is betting that these upgrades will perform reliably enough to support future milestones, bringing the vision of 2-stage catches and full vehicle reuse closer to reality. Time, however, is not on SpaceX's side. To launch Flight 12 in early next year, the team has approximately 2 months to complete final assembly and testing. Currently, the rocket and launch pad remain unfinished. Cryogenic tests, tank pressure trials, and static fire runs have not yet begun. The upper stage is still being stacked, while the Super Heavy booster nears completion. Every element of the supporting infrastructure must also come online and undergo verification to ensure it can handle the extreme forces of the Raptor 3 engines and the new flame trench system. This compressed schedule is one of the most ambitious in SpaceX's history. Despite these challenges, the SpaceX team is no stranger to working under pressure. Elon Musk has hinted at hidden strategies and technological innovations designed to allow Flight 12 to achieve both immediate validation and long-term advancement. The mission must balance experimentation with reliability, an intricate dance that, if successful, could redefine the pace of Starship development. Flight 12 is not just another test flight. It is a pivotal moment in the ongoing space race, a tangible demonstration of SpaceX's philosophy, relentless innovation, rapid iteration, and ambitious vision. Every liftoff, every stage, separation, every heat shield test and engine relight represents incremental progress toward the ultimate goal of fully reusable rockets capable of reaching orbit, refueling in space, and one day taking humans to Mars. We are witnessing history in the making. Flight 12 will push the envelope of rocket technology testing systems that could become the backbone of humanity's interplanetary future. If the mission succeeds, it will not only validate the Starship version 3, but also provide critical insights that accelerate SpaceX's broader ambitions. Every Gridfin Raptor 3 engine and heat shield tile will contribute to a larger story, a story of exploration, audacity, and the pursuit of the stars. For observers, enthusiasts, and engineers alike, this flight offers a rare chance to watch innovation unfold in real time. Flight 12 is a demonstration of what is possible when human ingenuity meets relentless drive. It is a showcase of technological courage, risk-taking, and the careful orchestration of hundreds of moving parts, all aimed at one ultimate objective: making space more accessible, more reliable, and more reusable than ever before. As Flight 12 nears, anticipation is building. The countdown is no longer a mere ritual. It is a signal that the space race continues evolving from the Cold War-era duels of the 20th century into a modern contest of vision, engineering, and ambition. Elon Musk and SpaceX are at the forefront, showing the world that the boundaries of possibility are not fixed but expandable. Every upgrade, every test, every successful landing is a step toward a future in which humans live and work beyond Earth. So which upgrades are you most excited to see? The Raptor 3 engines roaring to life, the new flame trenches channeling fire safely away, or the heat shield protecting the ship during re-entry? Each element tells a story of innovation, precision, and a vision for the future. Flight 12 will test these systems under the harshest conditions, and the outcome could influence not just SpaceX's trajectory, but the trajectory of human spaceflight itself. In the final analysis, Flight 12 is more than a launch. It is a statement that space exploration can be faster, more efficient, and more daring than ever before. It is proof that reusable rockets are not just an idea, but an inevitable reality powered by engines designed for longevity, heat shields built for endurance, and ground systems engineered for repeatable performance. This flight will set the stage for the next chapter of SpaceX's story, and perhaps the next chapter of humanity's journey beyond Earth. The stage is set. The rocket is nearly ready. The pad is prepared. Flight 12 is poised to redefine expectations, challenge conventions, and push humanity one step closer to the stars. Mid-November, during a routine run at SpaceX's McGregor test site, a Raptor 3 erupted into pieces the moment engineers tried to start it. Seeing an engine explode on a test stand grabs attention, but in the story of rocket development, an explosion can also be a useful piece of evidence. What made this event unusual was when it happened. The failure occurred during startup, not after a long-duration static fire like many past incidents. Startup is the most delicate moment in an engine's life. Thermals, pumps, and igniters all must come into alignment in a fraction of a second. If any element is off, a part that's still warm when it should be cryogenic, a turbopump that spins too slowly or too fast, or a pre-burner that lights out of sequence, the whole system can self-destruct in an instant. There are two simple ways to read this test. 1. It was an unlucky, isolated fault in a single unit. 2. SpaceX pushed the engine deliberately, stressing systems to find the limits. Given SpaceX's long history of provocative, high-stress testing to expose failure modes early, the second interpretation fits the pattern. Find the edge now, fix it before flight. That's why an on-stage explosion can be progress, not just drama. Each failure narrows the list of unknowns. It points engineers to specific subsystems to inspect, instrument, and redesign. In short, a dramatic event at McGregor didn't mean mission failure. It meant data, and data is the raw material of reliability. If the McGregor test was a stress check, it's easy to see why. Raptor 3 isn't an isolated upgrade. It's one piece of a much larger plan to make Starship operational engineers aren't tuning an engine for its own sake. They're tuning a propulsion family that will power Block 3 hardware and, if schedules hold, push Starship into an action-packed 2026. Raptor 3 is being framed as more than raw thrust. Yes, the goal is huge. Engineers expect the engine to reach on the order of 300 tons of force, possibly closer to 330 tons down the line, which would put it among the most powerful single-chamber liquid rocket engines ever built. But the leap isn't only about power. SpaceX appears to have trimmed mass at the same time. Raptor 3 reportedly sheds over a ton compared with Raptor 2. Multiply that saving by 33 engines on a super-heavy booster, and you're looking at a weight reduction measured in tens of tons. Mass that can be traded for payload, margin, or more performance. The calendar matters. Raptor 3 is slated to show up in early 2026, with Flight 12 marked as a key milestone, an in-space relight of a Raptor 3. Relighting a vacuum-optimized engine after prolonged operation is one of the hardest real-world checks a propulsion system faces. Past flights have sometimes struggled with reignition after long burns. Proving it in flight is what turns bench data into mission capability. So the upgrade is both tactical and strategic. More thrust, less weight, and a step toward engines that can be reliably restarted in flight. Those three things together change how a vehicle is flown, recovered, and reused. A cluster of Raptor 3s won't just add thrust, it will act like Starship's throttleable, steerable heart. By throttling and vectoring groups of engines, the upper stage gains precise control through thick air and thin. That control is exactly what SpaceX will need when it tries a far harder trick next year, bringing Starship back from orbit and catching it on the launch tower. We've watched Super Heavy practice the tower catch already. Catching a booster in mid-air is impressive. Catching an object returning from orbital velocity is a different class of difficulty. The vehicle returns hotter, faster, and with much tighter margins for timing and control. Engine cluster steering becomes critical. Small thrust differences change where the ship points and where it will meet the catcher arms. SpaceX plans to attempt that orbital catch in the first half of 2026. The rehearsal value is obvious. Every relight, every throttle, every marginal correction on the test stand or in a suborbital run teaches engineers how to manage the full orbital return. Reusability has a clear financial upside: fewer built-for-one flights, lower cost per launch, and a faster cadence. But money isn't the only constraint. For near-term, high-priority missions such as NASA's Artemis 3, SpaceX and mission planners prefer simpler, lower-risk choices. Expendable tankers or landers that compensate the complexity of large-scale in-orbit refueling. Starship is enormous, and that comes with a harsh penalty. Almost all of its launch mass is propellant. By the time the vehicle climbs to roughly 400 kilometers, about 250 miles, it has already burned nearly everything it carried to get that far. At that point, the rocket is effectively hungry. It has the structure and engines, but not the fuel to push a payload further or to slow down for a safe return. The solution is simple in concept and fiendish in practice. Launch a second Starship as a depot. rendezvous in low Earth orbit, dock, and transfer cryogenic propellant. The pair behave like an orbital gas station, comparable to how military planes refuel in flight, but colder and heavier. Both vehicles must meet precisely, seal a connection, and move methane and liquid oxygen through plumbing while keeping the propellant super cold. Small errors in timing, attitude, or plumbing pressure can spoil the burn, so practice is everything. SpaceX has targeted a demonstration of this capability in June 2026. The test uses a target Starship placed in orbit, followed weeks later by a chaser that docks and performs propellant transfer using pressure differentials. Success here turns laboratory plumbing and test stand numbers into a working, repeatable operation. The difference between a clever idea and an operational architecture. If Starship can prove that it can refuel in orbit next year, the path to its next milestones becomes far clearer. The first major checkpoint is scheduled for June 2027, an uncrewed Starship landing on the lunar surface. Roughly a year later, in September 2028, the same architecture is planned to support a crewed lunar landing, the moment Artemis transitions from concept to reality. But while the world focuses on the Moon, another plan will quietly begin taking shape in the background. Mars. SpaceX intends to launch up to 5 uncrewed Starship version 3 vehicles to Mars during the 2026 window in November and December. These early missions won't carry humans. They'll carry sensors, tools, and a handful of Optimus humanoid robots built by Tesla. Their job is simple: explore, collect data, and perform small tasks that build confidence in landing techniques, surface operations, and resource use. Musk himself has joked that an image of Optimus walking on Martian soil would be epic. The challenge is timing. Reaching the 2026 launch window depends entirely on mastering orbital refueling, the same hurdle that stands before every long-distance Starship mission. Musk rates the odds at about 50-50. If they manage it, the company will escalate quickly. Between 2028 and 2029, the plan expands dramatically. Roughly 20 Starships heading for Mars, some potentially carrying people. The strategy is flexible and cautious where it needs to be. If the first uncrewed landings perform well, humans could fly on the following opportunity. If not, SpaceX may choose to repeat 1 or 2 Optimus-only missions before committing crew. We'll see, Musk says, a reminder that even the most ambitious plans hinge on technical realities, not just timelines. SpaceX has already begun the quiet business of picking a place for the first permanent settlement. The criteria are straightforward. Stay away from the cold poles, find shallow, easily reachable water ice, and pick terrain that's flat enough for safe landings and launches. Right now, the favorite is Arcadia Planitia, a broad volcanic plain in the planet's northern hemisphere that checks those boxes. According to Musk, the numbers that follow read like a planner's fevered dream. Slides shown by Musk sketch a stepped buildup, roughly 100 ships in the 2030-31 launch window, then as many as 500 in the 2033 window. The end goal is a self-sustaining city, one that could survive even if contact with Earth were severed. That city, in Musk's vision, would host more than 1 million people and require moving millions of tons of cargo across interplanetary space. To reach that scale, SpaceX imagines scaled-up Starships, eventually a fully stacked vehicle some 142 meters tall, and a cadence of launches unlike anything in history. At maturity, Musk suggests, thousands of ship upper stages could be arriving and departing each launch window, building out habitats, mines, and infrastructure. It's an astonishing plan, part logistics, part vision, and it ends with Musk's blunt call to action. All right, let's get it done. Next, we'll look at the practical challenges of turning that vision into a functioning city. Life support, power, and how a human society might actually grow on Mars. To live on Mars, people need air to breathe, water to drink, and food to eat, just like on Earth. But Mars doesn't have enough air or liquid water, so we have to create special systems to recycle air and water and grow food indoors. People will also need energy to power their homes and machines. Solar panels can collect sunlight, but Mars has dust storms sometimes, so nuclear power plants might be used to make sure there's always electricity. Building houses and places to work is important too. Some homes might be underground or inside special domes to protect from Mars's harsh weather, and radiation robots will help build things before people arrive. Of course, mental health is also a matter. People need ways to stay healthy, learn, and have fun. Growing a city means making schools, hospitals, and places to live safely, while slowly expanding by using stuff found on Mars. In October 2025, Elon Musk gave a glimpse of what the future holds. Via a post on X, he revealed, "The Starship 4 crewed variant will have over 1,000 cubic meters of pressurized volume, 10% more than the International Space Station." Think about that for a moment. More volume than the ISS in a single vehicle. That means more space for crew quarters, research labs, exercise areas, medical facilities, and storage for the mountains of supplies a mission to Mars requires. For multi-month journeys, this extra space isn't just a luxury, it's essential. Humans confined in small quarters for months can suffer psychologically. Starship version 4's roomy interior will help keep astronauts healthy, focused, and ready to work as they approach the red planet. SpaceX isn't just making the rocket bigger for comfort. Every aspect of Starship version 4 is built for performance. Musk previously shared a slide comparing all 4 versions of Starship. Version 4 stands out, nearly 150 meters tall, almost as high as the Statue of Liberty stacked 3 times. Its booster alone will be 81 meters tall, loaded with elongated propellant tanks for more fuel capacity, while the upper stage reaches 61 meters. This added height isn't vanity, it's capability. Starship version 4 can carry a payload exceeding 200 tons in fully reusable mode. To put that in perspective, Starship version 3 could only manage 100 tons. With a significant increase in efficiency, Starship version 4 is a game-changer for heavy cargo missions, enabling SpaceX to pre-deploy supplies, infrastructure, and even robots to Mars ahead of humans. Fuel is key, and Starship carries more than enough, 4,050 tons in the booster and 2,300 tons in the upper stage. To lift this massive payload, SpaceX has added more engines. Version 4 features 42 Raptor engines, including 3 extra vacuum-optimized Raptors on a significantly longer upper stage. The Raptor vacuums are tuned for maximum efficiency in space, with specific impulses around 380 seconds. The upper stage also keeps 3 sea-level Raptors at the center, gimbaled to steer and reignite for precise landings. The new engine layout is elegant and practical. 3 central sea-level Raptors are surrounded by 6 Raptor vacuums in a hexagonal pattern. This balanced shape makes the rocket stronger and helps spread out the pushing force evenly, so the rocket flies softer and smoother when it blasts off. And yes, there's a fun nod to sci-fi fans. 42 engines, a wink to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where 42 is the ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42.
But this isn't just trivia. The extra Raptor vacuum significantly improves Starship's thrust and payload capacity. Version 4's initial thrust? A staggering 2,700 tons from the upper stage alone, higher than any previous Starship. The most immediate gain is increased payload capacity to orbit, especially in the tanker variant. This is crucial for orbital refueling, a key part of interplanetary missions. Currently, refueling a Starship in orbit requires 8 to 10 tanker flights. More payload capacity means fewer tankers needed for interplanetary injection. Critical when sending heavy cargo to Mars, Venus, or near-Earth asteroids. But here is the most striking part. Version 4's booster will reach 10,000 tons of liftoff thrust. An enormous number is enough to shock anyone. It is expected to use the upgraded Raptor 3 engines. These engines produce roughly 280 to 300 tons of thrust each at sea level and are designed for improved efficiency, simplicity, and reliability. Raptor 3 engines use a full-flow staged combustion cycle for high efficiency. They have improved thrust-to-weight ratio and specific impulse compared to earlier Raptors. The large number of these powerful engines allows the booster to generate the combined liftoff thrust near 10,000 tons. But SpaceX plans Raptor version 4, which is even more power, around 330 tons. That is an 18% jump in power over its predecessor. When you multiply that across 33 engines mounted on a super heavy booster, you get roughly 10,890 tons of thrust. This is a significant amount of power, roughly 3 times that of the Saturn V rocket. Thanks to stronger engines, the rocket can rise faster and stronger from the launch pad. Think of thrust as the rocket's pushing power. The more thrust, the quicker and easier the rocket can break free from Earth's gravity. A stronger thrust means the first part of the flight, called the boost phase, will finish sooner. This lets the stretched upper stage take over and push the rocket farther into space more efficiently. This faster boost means the rocket spends less time fighting gravity, saving fuel, and increasing the total payload it can deliver to orbit or beyond. For missions to Mars, this is super important because it allows sending more equipment and supplies before the astronauts arrive. The engine upgrade isn't just about speed and capacity. It's about safety. More engines mean redundancy. If one engine fails, the others can compensate, keeping Starship stable during flight. This is vital for a vehicle carrying hundreds of tons of fuel, supplies, and humans. Starship also has little thrusters powered by gas to help steer, but if those gas tanks run out or fail, the engines can still help control the rocket by changing how much power each engine produces. This gives the rocket an extra way to stay balanced and safe during powerful and important parts of the flight. So having many engines provides backup and better control, making sure Starship can complete its mission even if something goes wrong with 1 or 2 engines. This engine redundancy is a key part of why Starship is safer and more reliable for big missions, like going to Mars. Finally, hot staging, igniting upper stage engines while still attached to the booster, is another challenge version 4 tackles. This is tricky because the flames from the upper engines could damage important parts, like the booster's protective heat shields or fins. With 6 vacuum engines on the upper stage, Starship version 4 can light them one by one in a careful order, called staggered ignition. This way, the hot gases don't damage the booster. The result? Smoother, safer separation. All right. We've seen all the jaw-dropping features of Raptor 4. So which one blew your mind the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to see what excites you the most. Now, let's shift gears and talk about Elon Musk's bold Mars plan, where Starship version 4 isn't just a passenger, it's going to be the hero of the mission. SpaceX's first missions to Mars are tentatively targeted for 2026. Timed with the next favorable alignment of Earth and Mars. By then, the company plans to launch 5 uncrewed missions designed to gather crucial data on entry and landing. These early missions will rely on minimally equipped landers, without landing legs, primarily to test whether Starship can safely touch down on the Martian surface. If all goes according to plan, the first Starship could arrive on Mars in 2027, carrying an as-yet unspecified number of Tesla's bipedal Optimus robots. These robots are intended to help build basic infrastructure and assist with surface operations. Starship version 4 is expected to play a central role in these early missions. By the next transfer window in 2028, SpaceX hopes to launch around 20 Starships. Most will ferry additional Optimus units to set up Martian infrastructure and survey resources, such as water ice. At least one of these Starships would carry human passengers. Following this, SpaceX plans to steadily ramp up the frequency and scale of Mars missions: 100 Starships in 2031, 500 in 2033, ultimately reaching an ambitious goal of 1,000 to 2,000 ships per Mars rendezvous. Each crewed Starship would carry between 100 and 200 people. Experts familiar with Mars mission planning are cautiously optimistic about SpaceX's approach. Robert Moses, a retired aerospace engineer from NASA's Langley Research Center, says he approves of the plan. "I like it. I like it a lot," Moses says, noting that SpaceX is covering the key technical elements he would expect to see in a Mars architecture. Compared to NASA's reference missions, SpaceX's plan involves hundreds more spacecraft and crew, but the underlying strategy is sound. However, there is significant uncertainty over whether SpaceX can meet its ambitious launch timeline. Elon Musk himself acknowledges that 2026 may be overly optimistic. He has suggested a slim possibility of an Optimus robot crewed flight in late 2026. More likely, the first uncrewed mission in 2029 and crewed in 2031, aiming for a self-sustaining city by 2045 to 2055. Moses believes that even delaying the first uncrewed missions to 2028 would still allow enough time for a robust buildup before 2033. One of the most daunting challenges remains orbital refueling. Robert Zubrin, founder of the Mars Society, emphasizes its critical role. A Starship flying a 6-month conjunction-class trajectory to Mars would need roughly 600 tons of methane to oxygen propellant after reaching low Earth orbit. SpaceX's current plan calls for 6 Starship tankers to refuel the mission Starship, a complex operation that must occur within a single launch window. To mitigate these refueling challenges in the early phase, SpaceX could explore the concept of a smaller, Starship-like vehicle called Starboat as a temporary solution. Starboat would be roughly 5 times lighter than a full Starship and could be launched fully fueled by a single Starship, potentially carrying 5 to 25 tons of cargo directly to Mars. This approach could drastically reduce the number of orbital refueling operations required and simplify logistics. Starboat also promises unprecedented surface mobility on Mars. With 100 tons of fuel, it could transport a crew 2,200 kilometers, enabling exploration across an area nearly twice the size of the continental United States. A Starboat could also make a direct return trip from Mars to Earth, using only 50 to 120 tons of fuel, depending on whether it lands on the surface or rendezvouses with a mothership in low Mars orbit. If successful, these innovations could transform Mars missions from tentative landings into a fully operational mobile outpost, laying the foundation for humanity's first sustainable presence on another planet. In mid-November, a moment long in the making finally arrived. Blue Origin's new Glenn booster descended through the Atlantic skies and settled onto a floating platform with remarkable precision. For many watching, it felt almost surreal. A company founded 25 years ago, long criticized for its slow progress, had just stuck a pinpoint barge landing on only its second attempt. The reaction was immediate. Supporters who had always hoped Blue Origin would eventually rise to the challenge felt vindicated. Others pointed out something even more striking. Because the first attempt was lost during descent, this successful landing might as well be considered their first real one. And for a brand new heavy-lift launcher, sticking it on the first legitimate try is no small achievement. The timing also couldn't be more significant. Blue Origin is now competing directly with SpaceX for NASA's Artemis 3 lunar landing contract. New Glenn's flawless recovery gives the company something it has lacked for years: momentum. And Blue Origin really wants to strengthen its case even further. How? Reusing this same booster on the next New Glenn launch, planned for early next year. This coincides with the time SpaceX plans to launch its Starship Block 3 hardware. For the first time, it seems Blue Origin is putting pressure on itself to launch before SpaceX. As usual in the past, they often failed, and this time it is unclear whether there will be a plot twist. But there's real concern here. Refurbishing this first returned stage could push back the next launch attempt. New Glenn is ultimately designed for rapid turnaround, 2 to 3 weeks between flights. But no one expects that speed on the very first refurbishment cycle. Still, Jeff Bezos' rocket company believes that this delay might be worth the risk. Even a slip of a few weeks might not significantly affect its long-term flight plans. The next New Glenn mission is expected to carry the Blue Moon Mark 1 lander, an uncrewed spacecraft built to test key systems for NASA's Artemis 5 mission in 2029. Launching Mark 1 in early 2026 would be ideal. But if the schedule slips, the mission isn't in jeopardy. In fact, CEO Dave Limp has already said the lander can be moved to the 4th New Glenn launch if needed. The message is clear. There's no rush, and the development timeline remains firmly under control. Another concern raised by critics is cadence, whether a delay will hinder Blue Origin's ability to ramp up into a reliable launch rhythm, but this misses a more fundamental issue. Cadence is impossible without hardware. As of now, the company hasn't committed to a fixed number of New Glenn flights for 2026. Their focus this year is instead on building inventory. According to Limp, Blue Origin aims to produce around 20-second stages annually, ensuring the infrastructure exists before any promise of rapid launch cycles. As he put it, that's the next step that we're going to have to sit down with the team. There's also the matter of reputation. If Blue Origin manages to reuse this same booster on its second flight, or even beyond, it would send a strong signal to the space industry. At that point, few could deny their place in the reusable rocket club, and that brings back a story many in the space community still remember. When SpaceX first landed a Falcon 9, Jeff Bezos quipped, "Welcome to the club." So when Elon Musk congratulated Blue Origin on New Glenn's landing and notably skipped the jab, many saw it as a moment of quiet restraint. A rivalry decades in the making had come full circle. Even with growing confidence inside Blue Origin, Dave Limp has kept the company's messaging disciplined, optimistic, but cautious. And that's why, alongside the plan to refurbish New Glenn's first booster, he revealed a quiet but important backup option: simply using a brand new stage. It's kind of a toss-up because the third booster is pretty far along in manufacturing, he explained. For Blue Origin, this backup serves as a lifeline. If refurbishment threatens to cause major delays, or if risking a second landing attempt with the same hardware feels too dangerous for the company's reputation, switching to a fresh booster becomes the safer move. And it's worth remembering, New Glenn isn't a typical rocket. It's heavier than Falcon 9, complex, and still in the earliest phase of its life cycle. SpaceX flew 15 Falcon 9 boosters before reusing one for the first time. In that context, Blue Origin's cautious approach looks far more reasonable. Another pressure point is demand. Limp noted that interest in New Glenn surged almost immediately after the landing. My phone has been fairly busy in the last 24 hours with customers coming out of the woodwork, which is a good problem to have, he said. In what so-called launch-constrained market, as Limp said, that kind of demand becomes a powerful motivator to get the vehicle operational as fast as possible. One of the most important potential customers is the U.S. Space Force. To certify New Glenn for national security space launch missions, the rocket must fly several more times, anywhere from 2 to 14, depending on how the evaluation proceeds. Limp didn't disclose which certification path Blue Origin is pursuing, but he made one thing clear. The 2 flights already completed won't be enough. Still, both the technical and administrative processes are moving forward on schedule. This discussion sparked debate online. Some users saw the surge in customer interest as a clear sign of market confidence. Others wondered whether Limp's comments were simply a PR move, an attempt to impress investors. But that argument runs into a simple fact. Blue Origin doesn't have outside investors to impress. The company is privately owned, with Jeff Bezos remaining the majority, if not sole, financial backer. Much of its funding comes from Bezos selling Amazon stock, allowing the company to focus on long-term development without shareholder pressure. As for the broader space market, it's launch-constrained, but not fully saturated. SpaceX is pushing the limits with roughly 15 to 16 launches per month, and aiming for about 170 missions in 2025. That's a launch every 2.1 days, the fastest cadence the industry has ever seen. And yet, even SpaceX still has some room to expand. The market isn't overflowing, but demand remains strong enough that additional launch capability, especially from a heavy-lift reusable rocket like New Glenn, could make a difference. So where does that leave us? Was Dave Limp exaggerating? Or was he simply describing a market that genuinely needs more rockets? And what should Blue Origin do next? Reuse their historic first booster, or push ahead with new hardware to keep the schedule moving? What do you think? Which path would you rather see for the third New Glenn flight, refurbished stage or fresh booster? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Online, the reaction to New Glenn's successful landing was immediate, but so was the controversy. In the middle of the applause, one statement from CEO Dave Limp lit the fuse. Never before has a rocket this big landed successfully on the second try. It was bold, it was confident, and within minutes, the internet did what the internet does, split into 2 sides and start dissecting every word. What should have been a moment of celebration quickly turned into a debate about context. Viewers weren't just asking, "Did Blue Origin really do it?" They were now asking, "How impressive is this? Really?" For many, Blue Origin's achievement seemed overshadowed by SpaceX's decade-long lead. After all, Blue Origin had just pulled off something SpaceX has performed more than 100 times. And while Jeff Bezos' company was celebrating its first major recovery milestone, SpaceX was already landing something much larger. That's when a single online comment, posted by a user named Wickwick, ignited the argument. "I guess technically he's right. The Starship booster is larger, and it landed on its first try." Suddenly, the comparison escalated. If Starship is bigger, and if its booster landed on the first attempt, was Blue Origin's achievement really worth all the hype? But the pushback was swift. Blue Origin supporters stepped in to clarify. The idea that Starship landed on its first try wasn't entirely accurate. For one, Starship boosters don't land. They're caught by Mechazilla, a tower designed to grab them mid-air, and before that first successful catch attempt, SpaceX went through a long chain of failures, explosions, and partial successes just to reach the point where the booster could even maneuver back to the catch zone. Others highlighted the difference in how both companies approached development. Blue Origin attempted a full physical landing immediately and succeeded on their second flight. SpaceX, by contrast, performed numerous virtual landings first, steering boosters toward the ocean to simulate descent profiles without attempting recovery. To be fair to BO, they went straight for physical booster landing attempts, succeeding on New Glenn Flight 2, whereas SpaceX went for virtual landing attempts before attempting a physical landing. Still, the comparison brings up a deeper truth about the two companies. SpaceX embraces a fail fast, learn fast philosophy. Each improvement, no matter how experimental, is flown immediately. Starship has evolved through a rapid cycle of testing, crashing, iterating, and flying again. Blue Origin, on the other hand, takes the cautious route, refining the design for over a decade before the first New Glenn ever left the pad. One approach is kinetic and aggressive. The other is methodical and controlled. And this is why the debate has gone far beyond counting attempts. It now touches on the very definition of a landing. Blue Origin follows the traditional method, firing engines, deploying fins, and touching down on its feet. SpaceX is attempting something entirely different, catching a skyscraper-sized booster with a giant steel tower. Two visions, two engineering philosophies, and two completely different interpretations of what it means to land a rocket. With New Glenn, the landing represented the first time the ultimate design of the recovery system was tested in a live flight. For Starship, each success is built on a mountain of iterative failures. Both achievements are impressive. Both push the boundaries of reusable rocketry, and both tell very different stories about how to reach the same frontier. For years, aerospace engineers have repeated a simple benchmark: a rocket company isn't truly a rocket company until it reaches orbit. By that measure, Blue Origin has finally crossed the line. After decades of development, the company's heavy-lift rocket New Glenn has now completed its second mission and its first full success. The booster climbed to orbit, carrying two NASA spacecraft bound for Mars, and then returned for a controlled landing. It's the first time Blue Origin has brought a New Glenn booster back intact. The achievement is significant for a company whose progress has been slow and often uncertain. Founded by Jeff Bezos in 2000, Blue Origin spent nearly a quarter-century without a single orbital flight. Only in January 2025 did New Glenn lift off for the first time. That debut mission reached orbit, a rare accomplishment for a first launch, but the booster was lost when 3 engines failed to reignite for landing. That failure raised the stakes for Flight 2. A month before the second mission, Pat Remias, Blue Origin's Vice President of Space Systems Development, made the company's intentions clear. "We fully intend to recover the New Glenn first stage on this next launch," he said. "Fully intend to do it." The urgency wasn't just about pride. Blue Origin has fallen behind schedule for years, and the U.S. Space Force is waiting. To compete for national security missions, Blue Origin must demonstrate reliable booster recovery and rapid reuse. A successful landing is now the key to further progress. The next New Glenn launch, planned for early next year, will reuse the same booster flown on this second mission. On top will sit Blue Origin's Blue Moon Lander, a cargo spacecraft designed to aiming to become the largest spacecraft to reach the lunar surface. It's one of the vehicles NASA is counting on as it pushes toward returning astronauts to the moon, not just a technical milestone. Inside Blue Origin, the successful second flight serves as a much-needed boost for a company that has spent years trailing its competitors. Pat Remias, the company's Vice President of Space Systems Development, understood from the beginning that landing the booster on the first mission was unlikely. And history supports that caution. SpaceX needed 20 Falcon 9 launches over 5 years before achieving its first successful booster landing. Another 15 months passed before a previously flown Falcon 9 returned to space. By comparison, Blue Origin has shortened that learning curve more quickly, even if the process has taken longer than the company once hoped. But the strategy behind each company is different. SpaceX's approach, fail fast, learn fast, relies on frequent launches and rapid iteration, allowing the team to gather flight data at a remarkable pace. Blue Origin's culture is shaped by its motto, gradatim ferociter, step by step ferociously. It favors measured progress, careful engineering, and methodical testing over speed. Careful preparation before the actual flight helped Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket land successfully after just a few flights. But while SpaceX now lands its Falcon 9 rocket multiple times a week, a pace that has become almost routine, Blue Origin is just beginning its journey to recover its boosters. Before Flight 2 managers hoped to refurbish and relaunch the first recovered New Glenn booster within 90 days. Instead, nearly a year passed. Engineers traced the previous landing failure to 7 issues tied to propellant management and engine bleed control, subtle but critical details in the booster's complex restart sequence. All of these efforts point toward one central objective, competing directly with SpaceX. The strategy is clear. New Glenn exists to challenge the Falcon family of rockets. Blue Origin's Blue Moon lander was proposed to NASA's Artemis program to show that SpaceX's Starship human landing system shouldn't be the only option for returning astronauts to the lunar surface. And recently, Blue Origin received an unexpected boost. NASA Administrator Sean Duffy announced that the agency would reopen competition for the Artemis 3 landing system. The decision allows companies, including Blue Origin, to submit new proposals. Duffy cited delays in SpaceX's Starship development and a desire to keep the schedule for a crewed lunar landing within the current presidential term. The announcement did not go unnoticed. Elon Musk, frustrated by the reopening of the contract, delivered a blunt response on social media. Blue Origin has never delivered a useful payload to orbit, let alone the moon. It was a pointed comment and a criticism grounded in the company's history. Blue Origin was founded in 2000, 2 years before SpaceX. Yet the trajectories of the two companies could not be more different. SpaceX has launched Falcon rockets hundreds of times, broken multiple industry records, and helped push the United States to an unprecedented share of global orbital payload capacity. Blue Origin, by contrast, spent decades flying suborbital tourism missions on New Shepard and conducting small-scale experiments for NASA. Its list of orbital achievements remained extremely limited until very recently. Even its latest success, launching NASA's twin Escapade spacecraft toward Mars, was modest by agency standards. The entire mission cost NASA about $55 million, a relatively small figure compared to larger planetary programs. Of that, Blue Origin received $18 million for the New Glenn launch, according to federal procurement data. Although Blue Origin sets the goal to outpace SpaceX in the near-term future, given the challenges still ahead, that goal remains distant. The company's most immediate task is straightforward but difficult: build better engines, build better rockets, and fly New Glenn far more often. One of the biggest bottlenecks lies in production. Blue Origin's output of New Glenn's second stages has moved faster than its ability to build first stages, the GS-1 boosters. The company's engine and booster factory in Huntsville, Alabama, took years to fully activate and even longer to reach efficient production rates. This imbalance is partly intentional. Blue Origin's strategy has been to produce only a small number of GS-1 boosters, each one far more complex and more expensive than a Falcon 9 first stage. The plan relies on recovering these boosters routinely and refurbishing them quickly between missions. But this approach comes with a significant risk. If landings fail, the entire launch schedule slows down. SpaceX approached the problem differently. During the development of both Falcon 9 and Starship, the company produced hardware at a much higher rate. Multiple boosters were built in parallel, ensuring that flight progress didn't depend on a single successful landing. At one point, Blue Origin hoped to fly New Glenn 8 times in a single year. In reality, the year will end with just 2 missions. The upper stage, GS2, presents its own challenge. The initial version is expensive, adding considerable cost to each New Glenn flight. Jeff Bezos has outlined 2 competing paths to address this, developing a reusable upper stage or driving the manufacturing cost of an expendable upper stage so low that reuse becomes unnecessary. According to Bezos, this isn't a decision that can be made theoretically. Blue Origin will have to build and test both approaches in the years ahead. Despite the difficulties, there are signs of progress. In September, Laura McGinnis, Blue Origin's vice president of New Glenn Mission Management, stated that the company was assembling several boosters and had 8 upper stages already in storage. If true, it positions Blue Origin to significantly increase its launch cadence next year. But flying more often is only part of the long-term objective. Blue Origin wants to cut the cost of delivering a kilogram of cargo to orbit or to the moon by a factor of 100. CEO Dave Limp compares the goal to cost reductions seen in industries like automobiles and consumer electronics. Achieving that kind of progress may require full reusability across the New Glenn system, a frontier Blue Origin has only begun to explore. In the end, Blue Origin's biggest challenge is cultural. The company must transition from what some insiders once described as a slow-moving Bezos-funded non-profit into a fast, disciplined, cost-conscious aerospace builder. And in recent years, that shift has quietly begun. Former employees from the era before Dave Limp became CEO often joked that Blue Origin was the world's biggest non-profit funded by one person. The point was simple. Unlike SpaceX, which had to win customers and deliver results to stay alive, Blue Origin never faced financial pressure. With Jeff Bezos footing the bill, the doors were never in danger of closing. That safety net gave the company stability, but also removed the urgency that drives innovation. For years, critics portrayed Blue Origin as old space, slow, bureaucratic, and often more likely to file lawsuits than fly rockets. Much of that perception solidified under former CEO Bob Smith. By the end of his tenure, even Bezos appeared frustrated. In December 2023, Bezos appointed Dave Limp, a longtime Amazon executive, to take over as CEO. Some questioned his lack of aerospace experience, but Limp quickly established firm control. His mandate from Bezos was direct execute Blue Origin's programs and do so with urgency. Inside the company, Limp set out to narrow the focus. Priorities were clarified. Engines and New Glenn became the center of attention because nothing else could move forward without them. Over the next year, he pushed the organization to operate with greater discipline and fewer distractions. Now, with the successful second flight of New Glenn, Blue Origin has carved out a clearer path. The company's next phase is defined by 2 goals: scaling up hardware production and driving down costs dramatically. The landing of New Glenn's booster on its second mission is more than a technical milestone. It's a signal that the company may finally be shifting into the fast-paced, cost-efficient mode required to compete at the highest level of the space industry. For the first time in a long time, Blue Origin looks like it may be on track.